What's up everybody, this is BR, and I am currently having some of the most fun in my favorite battle royale of all time. But while totally accurate Battlegrounds is taking a while to find me a match, I'm gonna talk about Apex. And speaking of Apex, it's been a while since we've had our last LTM. Even our last LTM hasn't really been that good. So because of that, I've inferred that maybe Respawn needs some ideas to get them started on some new LTMs. And so for this video, I'm going to talk about 3 LTM ideas that I've had for a while now that haven't really been done before in Apex. And hopefully to you guys sound like pretty good ideas. But before I get started, I'd like to thank my first ever subscriber to my Patreon, Jarrell LeeBrown. This is a pretty big moment for my channel and I'd like to show my gratitude. If you'd also like to support me, I do have a Patreon in the description. Anyways, on to the video.
Real men use iron sights? I use heavy artillery.
So on my clips channel, one of the first videos to get big was this one clip that was titled No Scope Hero. And yes, I do have a clips channel. If you'd like to check it out, look at some of my gameplay clips that I've had. It'll be in a card and in the description down below. I upload frequently, so please check it out. Anyway, aside from it being a nice looking clip, this clip in particular kinda did give me a little bit of nostalgia of old school games. Especially recently since I did complete the Halo trilogy. And I thought it would be cool that that style of gameplay could be introduced to Apex as an LTM. Which is the basis of this idea. So No Scope Hero would disable aim down sights, but not only that, it would also give the aim down sights values to the hipfire. So instead of all guns having pin perfect accuracy, they would still have that same balance based on aim down sights. And all while still being able to move at full speed, which would mimic the old school gameplay style by not having inaccuracy when moving at high speeds. Now the two things that I think the LTM will definitely affect over the gameplay of Apex is going to be speed and pacing. Speed is definitely going to go up as you don't have to slow yourself down to aim well. You also don't have to position yourself so that way you have a good sight line either. And the pacing of the game is going to go a lot faster because without the accuracy nerf, you can actually be a lot more aggressive. If you have good aiming skills, you can definitely take that into advantage as you don't have to aim down sights, putting yourself at a weakness. Now what I'm hoping to get out of this LTM is seeing a lot of plays that require good mechanical skill. I'm talking about good flicks, good tracking, and all that good stuff. It'll be definitely a different experience to base Apex, which is something you actually want out of an LTM, a fun, nice little game mode that isn't always going to be there forever. I'm sure all the pros are going to have a good time making clip compilations out of this LTM.
Standard issue because it's dependable. I grew up with one of these.
So there are two things that I really like in games. One is the Apex control mode and its ranking system, and gun game. So what do you think happens when we combine both and put them into an LTM for Apex? What we get is this, evil weapons. And this is how it works. When you drop, the only weapons available on the floor are base tier 1 weapons. In this context, tier 1 weapons are basically the weakest version of a type of weapon. So weapons like the P2020, the Mozambique, the RE45, etc, etc. And I'm not talking about weapons without attachments, I am legit talking about the kind of weapons that you would never get if you had the choice between that and something else. Like, unless you're getting hammer points with it, nobody's gonna pick up a P2020 to replace their R99. So let's say you land and you pick up a P2020. If you deal a certain amount of damage, you will get more attachments on that P2020. But the only way to upgrade your weapon is to get a kill. And each kill upgrades you to a better weapon. And depending on the tier 1 weapon that you chose, it will give you a different weapon. For example, for the P2020, it might go P2020, G7 Scout, 3030, Longbow, and then Wingman. And some weapons can have built-in hop-ups to make them feel like upgrades. And that's pretty much the big idea of it. However, because I like being a little stinker, if you get a kill with that high-tiered Wingman, you go all the way back down to the tier 1 P2020. And you have to climb all the way back up if you want that Wingman again. Of course, you know, to keep things interesting. After all, this is the whole point of the LTM, for it to be a party game. To carry that spirit of old party games from like Black Ops 2. Just people having a good time and not taking it too seriously, of course. But then again, it is Apex, so who knows. But if you really want to take the game serious and you want a reward, then I think this next LTM is for you.
Now, let's see what treasures you have for me.
You know what I fucking hate? Having all these legend tokens and not being able to do anything with them. Sure, I can spend them every once in a while on these recolors, but aside from that, there's really nothing there for it. I really wish I could just, spend them in some way, even if it was just gambling it away. And this is where my idea of wager matches comes in. Unfortunately, we can't have a traditional wager style for Apex, because Apex is a battle royale, there's no 1 versus 1. Instead, my proposal is to base the wager on which placement you get. So before you start a match, you have to choose which placement you're gonna get in this match. Are you gonna get top 10? Are you gonna get top 5? Or are you gonna actually win this round? And of course, the higher the placement, the more your wager gets multiplied. However, it also increases how much you have to put in up front. There is also another catch. To make things a little bit more fair, especially for those who are not the most skilled at the game, and to prevent just the best of the best winning all the time, if you really want to get that first place wager completed, you're going to be put at a severe disadvantage. And that's because you're going to get a lot less starting equipment. So for example, if you choose the first place wager, you're not going to land with anything. You're going to have to rely on the ground loot that you get. However, if you chose top 5 as your wager, you'll start off with something simple like a Mozambique and maybe level 1 armor. If you choose top 10 as your wager, which is going to be a lot of people, you'll start out with not only level 1 armor, but also some healing and some other things as well, which totally depends on how Respawn would balance it. And alright, fine, this actually does sound pretty fun. But a lot of the fear is that a lot of the level 10 wagers are just gonna get to level 10 and then just quit the game and then restart, right? How do we discourage players from just immediately leaving once we get to 10th place? That's where a little bit of more motivation comes in. So for every single player that you kill, you steal their entry cost. And what this creates is a dichotomy of the type of squads that you're gonna go up against. Not only are you competing with other players who are trying to get that first place spot to get the giant jackpot, but also squads trying to bring down other squads to try to get a little bit of reward out of it. Of course, these disruptors are never gonna make the same amount of bank as the actual wager players, but it's nice for those who actually want to go out there and kill and get a little bit of reward out of it. But what's the reward? Obviously, we know that we're wagering our legend tokens, and well, what are we going to spend those legend tokens on? And this is where Respawn has to deliver on quality content to spend those legend tokens on. Now, it could be limited time cosmetics, but it could also be something as simple as Apex packs. I'm sure having the opportunity to get a bunch of Apex packs and get closer to that heirloom is more than enough incentive for people to start wagering on those matches. And it also creates a nice little money sink for us who have the ungodly amount of legend tokens in our inventory. We just really want to get rid of them. And if you can slide a couple of Apex packs our way because of those legend tokens, we'll be more than grateful. And I hope that Respawn keeps that store open for a little while longer after the event is finished, so that way people have the opportunity to buy some skins with their legend tokens. But anyways, that should be it for this video, and I'd like to hear from you. What are some of your ideas for LTMs that they could bring into Apex? How did you like my recommendations? If you found this video interesting, like it if you liked it, dislike it if you disliked it. If you'd like to see more content just like this in the future, make sure to subscribe. And if you'd like to support me, I do have a Patreon in the description. And thank you to my current Patreons. Of course, that being my first ever patron, Jarrell LeeBrown. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you later.